Let's take a look at how to customize the ZBrush interface. And when it comes to ZBrush, I feel like a lot of times people can get confused with the interface, but I want to show how to make it kind of easy and more user-friendly. And what I mean by that is if you look at the top here, these menus, I have some custom ones made, and I'm going to kind of show how to do that. You can see that I have even these, my top brushes, my top materials, kind of top things that are used. And even if I press a button, I just press J and this pops up. You can see that my draw size is at the top here, a couple brushes. And if I bring an object in, I'm just going to bring something in here real quick. Just to see this. So if I press J, you can see that I can add divisions. I can move this. I have this. I can click on my different, once again, my quick brushes here. I also have quick brushes at the bottom here, as well as materials. And if I press hotkeys, I can press 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I have hotkeys set for these as well. That's what I'm going to be going over and kind of walking you through step by step how to do that. It's actually fairly easy, not necessarily intuitive, but once you know how to do a few things, it's pretty easy. So I'm going to go up here to Preferences and config. I'm just going to say Restore Standard UI. And now it's the standard user interface. And you can see that it doesn't even have my special menus up here. So I'm going to kind of walk you through from scratch. So what I would recommend is when you launch ZBrush, usually, the light box is open. If it's not, go ahead and press right here. And then go ahead and click on the demo head. And it could be anything. It just needs to be an active subtool. And if it's not active, make sure that the draw and the edit button up here are pressed so you can kind of rotate around and kind of work around your scene. Okay, now, just like a normal subtool. And then you'll have access to all of this. So if I want to customize things, I'm going to go ahead and go to Preferences, and I'm going to drag Preferences over to the side. Okay, and if you don't see the side, double click on the divider, and that'll open this up. I'm going to go to Config, and I'm going to click Enable Customize. When I click on that, notice how the bottom kind of pops up a little bit. So you can see that there's not really much space down here. I'll click Enable Customize. There's some space up here. There's also some space up here. Now, the first thing I want to do is put some custom brushes down at the bottom. So to do that, I'm going to go to the brush menu, and I'm actually going to dock this on this side since I'm going to be using it quite a bit. And if it's not there, I can go to brush and I can click on this thing and I can drag it over here. There we go. And if I drag a big icon, it's going to be a big icon down here. If I drag a small icon, it's going to be a small icon down here. The other thing I want to be aware of is if I go to Interface, I want to turn off wide buttons. I want them to be as small as possible. I can see here that's what a wide button looks like. And if I turn that off, I can see that this is what a small button looks like. It just kind of, I think, makes it a little bit cleaner. So I'm going to go and grab my top brushes. Feel free to grab any brush you want, but I'm going to go with Clay Buildup. And I usually select it, and then it'll turn up as a small brush over here. And then when I have Enable Customize on, I can hold down Control-Alt and then drag, and I can drop that right down here. Then I want another one. I want the Damien Standard brush. So if I don't have that, I can go here to Damien Standard. Let's see. There it is. And now, once again, that's going to show up as a small one here. So I'm going to go ahead and hold down Control-Alt, and I'm going to drag that next to this. Excellent. Now I also want the Move brush. I want the Move Topological. And Standard. Now obviously you could have whatever you wanted, but I feel like that's kind of a good start. We've got 5 brushes. Now to add materials, I'm going to add those over here. Now you can once again have it however you want. I'm going to minimize my brush menu, and I'm going to go to materials. I'm going to go ahead and drag this over here. I'm going to do exactly the same thing. I want these little materials to show up. So I'm going to grab my materials that I want. I'm going to start with this red wax clay, and I'm going to go Control Alt, and I'm going to drag that down here. Excellent. And you can see that I kind of selected these other ones. I'm going to go to the matte cap gray. I like the skin shade 4. And here's the alt green, green one, and I'm going to say a poly skin. Once again, it's not important what materials that I chose. You can once again choose any materials that you want. I'm just showing some concepts. Now that I have that set up, if I want to set up hotkeys for that, well, for one, even if I don't set up hotkeys, I feel like it's a lot faster for me to grab these brushes now. I don't have to dig through this menu up here. But if I want to set up hotkeys for the brushes, and by the way, the brushes already have hotkeys. Okay, so what is the hotkey for the brush? Well, let's say if I'm looking for Damien Standard, the hotkey for brush is B. That'll bring up the brush menu. Then D for Damien Standard, and then I can see the icon in the upper left-hand corner. In this case, it's an S. Now that would be my shortcut. So that would be B, D, S to get there. Okay, little clunky. You could, if you had like a Wacom tablet or something, you could kind of program it to go to that. But I feel like what I find it's kind of easier is that we can set up our own hotkeys for this. And what I like to do is just have it in order. So this would be like for number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So to do that, I'm going to uncheck Enable Customize under my preferences. And now I'm going to do Control Alt, and I'm going to click on this. And up here it says, hey, press any key combination to assign custom hotkey. So I'm going to just go ahead and press 1. And now if I press 1, it jumps to the clay buildup brush. That's my hotkey for that. So to do it for Damien Standard, I'm going to go Control Alt, click on that, and then I'm going to press 2. Control Alt, click on this. I'm going to press 3. Control Alt, click on this, press 4, and Control Alt, click on this, press 5. Now, what's cool about that, I can just put my hands on 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5, and you can see that I'm just toggling between these brushes. Okay, really cool. I can do the same for the materials. So for this, I'm going to go Control Alt. This time I'm going to do Shift 1. And this will pop up if a hotkey is taken by something. It's going to warn you and say, hey, do you want to override whatever that shortcut was? Well, I never really use Shift 1, so I don't really care that it's overriding it. So I'm going to click OK. And I'm going to do Control Alt, click on this. I'm going to do Shift 2. And once again, I'll just say OK. Control Alt, Shift 3. Control Alt, Shift 4. Whoop, actually that is, hold on. Shift 1, Shift 2, Shift 3, Shift 4. Okay, so actually this one needs to be Shift 2. So I'm going to go Control Alt, Shift 2. And then this one, Control Alt, Shift 4, Control Alt, Shift 5. So now if I do Shift 1, I can see I can just toggle through just by going Shift 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's a great way to set up your brushes and your top materials. Obviously, you could have more if you wanted to. Okay, so, but hold on, there's more, right? I'm going to go ahead and open up this divider, and I'm going to go ahead and enable Customize again. And now I want to make my own drop-down menu. And for this, I'm going to go into, under Preferences, I'm going to go into Interface. Let's see. custom UI, and I'm going to go to create new menu. And now I'm going to name this, I'm going to call this, custom. I can name it whatever I want. And custom is going to show up at the end here. As soon as you start doing something, it might pop in alphabetically. I'm going to go ahead and open this up though and drag it over here. I could drag these out. And there's my custom menu. And now I can see that it shows up alphabetically right here across the top. Now I want to put stuff in here. So what I want to think about is, what do I use most often? And a lot of times, load tool, that's pretty important. So what I'll do is I'll go to the tool menu and I'll bring this over here. And I'm going to do what I was doing before. I'm going to hold down Control Alt and I'm going to drag this button over here. Now if I drag it down here, notice there's no white box, but if I drag it up here, a white box appears. So there's load tool. Now I'm going to go to import. Okay, so load tool and import, those are pretty important. I guess saving is pretty important. I'm going to go Control Alt, drag that. And sometimes, I might have to kind of like fiddle with getting it in the right place, but that's okay. And that's probably the main things that I want there. I'm going to go back into preferences, and under custom UI, I can put a spacer. So I can go Control Alt and I can drag this spacer, and I might have to kind of move that around. There we go. And maybe I want that spacer at the top as well. There we go. Now in this next section, maybe I want some brushes. So in this case, I'm going to kind of, maybe I'll drop my brushes over here. I'm going to find maybe the same brushes that I had down here. Let's say these are my top brushes. I'm going to go Control Alt and drag them here. Okay, now once again, you got to kind of baby it a little bit in the beginning, but not a big deal. There we go. Here's move. Okay, and maybe I just want those four. Maybe I don't want this one. Well, if I get rid of it, I can do Control Alt and then drag it into the desk, into here, and then it'll delete it. So maybe I want just the standard brush. There we go. Now, anything that you find in a menu can be in there. So one thing that I like with the brushes is if I go to the brush menu, auto masking, I like to know if my backface masking is turned on or off, and this is per brush. So I'm going to bring that. I'm going to hold down Control Alt, drag that, and I'm going to put it right up there. So now if I click on Clay Buildup, I can turn on backface masking. And if I go to Damien Standard, I can see that it's off. But when I click back here, I can see that it's on. Okay, so I could turn that on for all of these if I wanted to. I kind of wish backface masking would be on by default. Okay, but since it's not, I feel like this is a great place to put, that button. Now let me go back to my preferences, and I'm going to grab another divider, Control Alt. There we go. And now I'm going to put some materials. And if I go to material, I'm just going to grab, these. I'm going to go Control Alt, and now maybe move my slider up. And I'm just going to add a few more. So matte cap gray, matte cap, and the green. Now, could you have another row? Absolutely. You could have as many as you wanted, right? I'm just kind of doing it kind of bare minimum, just kind of show you kind of some ideas. I'm going to go ahead and drop that in there. And you don't even need the dividers. The dividers, I feel like, just kind of make it clean. Another thing that I like is adding divisions. So I know that adding divisions is going to be in my tools under geometry. So here's my divide and my divisions. And if you don't see that, remember, make sure you have an active subtool. So I'm going to go like this. I'm going to Control Alt, bring the divide button over. And then I'm going to go Control Alt, bring the subdivision. Okay. The other thing that I love or that I like to know is that when I move my subdivision, I want to know how many polygons he is. And I can see here's active points. And I can see that there it is. Now let's say if I had this open or whatever, if I had a smaller monitor, sometimes active points you can't see it. And then you have to hover over this. And then you can see how many polys it is. Well, I don't want to mess with that. I want to just have that right here. So here's just kind of a word of caution. If you move active points from here, which you can actually move any of this stuff in your custom menu by holding down Control-Alt. You're going to lose it from the interface, okay, from your default interface. So what I like to do is I like to find anything that I need in these other drop-downs. So active points was actually kind of hard to find, but it's under Preferences, Miscellaneous. Here it is, active points. So what I can do is I'm going to Control-Alt, drag that up here. Now look at how nice this is. When I divide this guy, I can see how many polys he is right there. I still have it on my interface in case I need it. And if I divide this guy up further, I can go here and I can see how many polys he is. Really easy. Okay. Total points, I could bring that in as well. I guess I don't really care about total points as much, but if you did, you could put that there as well. And now maybe I will, I want this polyframe button. I like to see, the wireframe occasionally. Once again, if I bring it from this menu, I'm going to lose it from the main menu. So I'm going to go into Transform. Most of these icons are going to be kind of hidden in the Transform menu. So I'm going to just kind of drag this over here. And I'm going to find things like polyframe, Control-Alt, drag it over. And if it doesn't land in there, you got to make sure that the white thing is on. You might have to kind of like reorganize this a little bit. Okay, there it is, polyframe. What else do I like? I like polyframe. I think I use transparent actually. So I'm going to go ahead and grab that. And solo, I like that as well. There we go. That's cool. And I think this is kind of cool. The fact, if I want to get in and out of this customization, remember that was on Preferences under Config, Enable Customize. That's what we started with. I'm actually going to bring that button over. So if I hold down Control-Alt, bring that over here, I can turn Enable Customize on or off at any time. Okay, and if I wanted some stuff that was kind of, I don't know, if I felt like this was getting a little bit too messy and I wanted to kind of organize it, I could go in my preferences and under, let me see here, under, let me see, yeah, custom UI, I can create a sub palette and I can control, let's see. Oh, and I can't drag it because I need to enable customize. There we go. Now I can come here and I can Control-Alt, drag that over here. And you can see that now, let's say if I wanted to bring in, I don't know, like we'll call it bonus materials. I could go like this and I could just bring in, you know, kind of like other materials that I like that, but I didn't want them to get, you know, mixed up with my other ones. I could go like this and I could, now I could hide that or show that. Okay, and in fact, if I wanted to keep going here, maybe I find some other ones that I like. And you can see that I could just keep adding to this. Let's see. And it doesn't even have to be all the same stuff in one of these drop downs. You could have whatever you wanted. Okay, so let's say if I wanted also the render button in there. Okay, BPR. I could go to render and I could try to find it in here. Let me see. Here it is, Control Alt, and then I could drag that in here, and now I have that, and that's just in here, okay? Now if I want to name this, I have to do Control Alt while clicking on Entitled, and now I could say, I'm going to call this Bonus Materials, okay? And, or you could have stuff like if you're doing hair or, you know, things like that, you could have that categorized there. I mean, you could have multiple, you know, drop downs here. But now something that's really cool, I'm going to uncheck Enable Customize. I'll go ahead and grab all this stuff out of here. Okay. So the idea would be this. Let's say when you launch ZBrush, if you made a great menu, the idea could be, well, I'm going to take this menu and I'm just going to put it over here. And now you should have everything that you need. And if you don't, you can keep adding to it in the method that, you know, we talked about. But another cool thing that we can do is we can actually have this custom menu assigned to a hotkey. So if I want to do that, I'm going to make sure that Enable Customized is turned off. Okay, so it's kind of weird. When you're setting hotkeys, you have to make sure Enable Customize is turned off. But when you're setting up, when you want to reposition things, Enable Customize has to be on. So with Enable Customize off, I'm going to Control Alt click on Custom. And now it says, hey, assign a hotkey for it. I'm just going to press J. And okay, now if I press J, it pops up. There it is. Okay, now we could take this even one step further. What I could do is if I go to my tablet, so if I type in like Wacom, tablet properties, I can say, okay, my tablet, the Intuos Pro, the pen for ZBrush, and if you don't see it, as long as ZBrush is launched, you should be able to click this plus sign and select it from an application. Notice these are not all the applications on your computer. It's only the ones that are currently active or launched. So I'm going to click on the tablet, the pen, and ZBrush, and then I can say I want it every time that I press this bottom button. I'm going to say keyboard, I'm going to say the keystroke, and I'm going to type in J, and I can see I could name that custom menu. So now, if I'm in ZBrush, anytime I click that button on the pen, it's going to pop up with my custom menu here. Okay. One thing that I like to do all the time is change my size of my brush, right? The scale or the brush size. So I'm going to just add that one last thing to this. I'm going to go to Enable Customize. I'm going to go to Draw, and then let's see, here's Draw Size. I'm going to hold down Control Alt, drag that right to the top, because the reason that I have it at the top is because I have this set to be programmed with my tablet. So if I click on the top here, boom, Draw Size is right there, right away. And now I should have everything that I need. Okay. Now, granted, this is just kind of a fast example to kind of get you in and out quickly, but hopefully this starts to, you know, really speed up your workflow, and that you're able to assign hotkeys and everything. And one thing that's very important that I should mention, that if I closed down ZBrush right now, all of this would be gone. Okay. So what I need to do is this. On Preferences, I'm going to go to Config, and I'm going to do this. I'm going to say Store Config, and it says that it's so it says master configuration file has been successfully saved successfully and will be restored every time you start ZBrush. So every time we start, it should look like this. I also want to save the UI. So if I go to this, now I can save it as, you know, my custom user interface, and then I can go _02 or whatever, or I could call it whatever I want. That way, if I go to another computer, I could physically bring this file along, and then I could go like load UI, go find that file, and then when I launch ZBrush, all my stuff should be there. The other thing you have to remember to save are the hotkeys. So remember we saved the hotkeys for this stuff, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then shift 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, plus the J. I'm going to go here for hotkeys. I'm going to hit save. Okay, now I'm going to call this just hotkeys 02. Okay, you can save it, name it whatever you want. That way when you go to school or when you go to work, you could bring that file with you. I'm going to go ahead and click save. But I also want to do this. I want to click on store. When I click on store, it says now every time I launch ZBrush, the hotkeys will be there. If you don't do that, then you would have to open this up, click load, and then select that file. So hopefully that helps you. Hopefully this speeds up your ZBrush workflow. And good luck. Happy ZBrushing.